Okay, so we'll go through how Sell.Do helps manage the entire marketing and the sales journey that any typical real estate firm needs to incorporate on a CRM. We will look at three different stages of the customer journey. One is setting up the campaigns and the requirements for getting the activation in place so that the system can start tracking and you know the entire activation gets captured onto Sell.Do. Second, we will look at how a journey of a customer, right from entering the details and registering herself or himself as a lead to booking takes place onto the platform. And lastly, we will look at key features on the platform in terms of the reporting and the nurturing. So to begin with, before we start any of the activation, right, it is imperative for us to set up this particular activation and ensure that all the tagging is in place. So you can go to the campaigns page of Sell.Do, and if you see, there are multiple campaigns created as well. So the primary source or the primary objective, right, is to ensure that there is zero lead loss whenever an activation is in place. So everything that we need to do in terms of ensuring that the lead needs to come to the CRM is taken care of and in this particular section. So if you look at the common sources of lead generation, it involves integration with our website. It involves integration with the common listing portals, the property portals that help us generate these leads. It also involves calling leads, wherein an incoming call comes to the system. And most of the times, this is something which is not integrated with the system or is managed outside the system. So if I go ahead, I set up the basic campaign names. I select if it is a project specific, or I can always have it as an umbrella campaign, which I'm doing for a particular location or multiple projects in focus, right? If I go to tracking numbers, we'll look at how the first setup in terms of capturing the leads from an incoming call is done. Here, Sell.Do is integrated with cloud telephony. It's inbuilt into the system, which allows us to go fast in terms of the calling. It allows us to ensure that the tagging and the routing is taken care of, and there is a strong coupling between the systems. So if you see, there are a few virtual numbers which are already in the system. They're tagged to a particular location, to a particular source, and this helps us very clearly identify how many leads are coming from a respective area or respective activation. Not just tagging these numbers, because the telephony is integrated in the system, I can directly go and purchase a number right from the CRM. Once these numbers are purchased and tagged, I can start using these numbers on multiple collaterals to which are shared with the customers, and the customer can call back to reach out to our teams. If I go ahead, Sell.Do also helps you integrate with your websites through a very basic API. It's a basic integration that helps us pass the name, email, and the phone number of this particular lead from the website. Or we also have scripted landing page forms, which is a two-liner script that needs to be put on the website, and an automatic form is rendered, which helps capture your leads from your website directly. I can always create multiple rules. For example, if you see, for a website, I have created a rule for Facebook with a subsource newsfeed. Now, every rule is given a unique ID, which gets appended into the URL and helps us track the source of a particular lead that has come to the system. Not just this, I can have multiple APIs, property source integrations, your Facebook ads, YouTube ads, all of this can be configured. So this ensures that every particular place or every single source that you want to go ahead and generate your leads from is integrated with the Sell.Do, and there is no manual intervention needed to add the system, add the leads into the system. Now, once this activation is set up, the next obvious step is to ensure that these leads need to be routed to the right person, which is where the routing configuration comes into picture. Routing configuration helps us route the leads or assign these leads to the right set of team members. This can be project wise, location wise, it can be a particular to campaign. Now, what this ensures is we have a right resources or right agents tackling or catering to these leads which we have spent money on and have generated. For example, I can always have, let's say, a campaign which is done for a particular locality basis the person who is really good at closing in that locality, or let's say someone who is really good with the language that is needed to cater to leads from this particular locality. The rules can be set up. For example, for this particular Platinum Towers project, I have assigned it to this particular agent, and so on. I can keep increasing the routing rules depending on the expectations from the activation and the routing flow. Now that the activation is set in the system and the routing rule is also set, what we'll do is we'll go and see how does the journey of the customer look like. I'm logging in as a manager. So in this demo, what we will see is how does the lead flow happen with a lead getting generated, getting assigned to pre-sales, pre-sales sending it to sales, and a closure happens on this particular customer, right? So what I have logged into is a standard pre-sales dashboard, which of course can be customized. However, something which you see here is new inquiries. This talks about the new leads that have come to me. Unread emails, because the system is integrated with omni-channel communication, which means I can have my emails, WhatsApp, and SMSs all configured within the same interface. And I don't need to step out of this particular dashboard for any kind of communication. I see unread WhatsApps, I see missed calls that have come to me which are not attended. It shows me something called as a new future activity. Now, no future activity is basically all the leads that I'm sitting on without a follow-up or a site visit, which are not yet booked or lost. This clearly shows me the amount of leads that I'm setting idle on without making an activation activity on them. And lastly, you see a count of re-engaged leads, which ensures that the leads which are coming to us again and again, which have a higher intent, are flagged off and are actioned quickly. What I see is there is a daily target which is given to the team. For example, this user has a target of 100 calls, 60 minutes of talk time. The average callback time has to be 30 minutes or less. They have to schedule 25 follow-ups. They have to conduct 5 site visits. They have to schedule 2 new visits, and they have to create 10 visits, right? That's basically the dashboard. On the right-hand side, I see what are my follow-ups for the day, my site visits for the day, and so on. Now, I'll quickly jump on to the customer journey, wherein as a customer, I have started searching for a property. I have just typed something in Google. I see an ad and I click on it. This is a replica of your landing page. Assume that this is your website where there is a form. Of course, there's a lot more communication which is mentioned on the website. In the interest of time and for the purpose of demo, I just have a simple form which is configured. The pages, and I submit my lead. Once the customer has submitted the lead, the customer gets a thank you message. Now, if I go back, you see that there is a pop-up that Tejas Mehta has raised an inquiry, and I see the basic details. I can quickly go open up the profile of the customer, right? And right away, I can have a feature enabled, which is called as Insta calling. Today, the market has become so competitive that reducing the tax and ensuring that the call goes to the customer with the least of the delay has become a priority. To tackle that and get away with the human intervention, what we have done is we have ensured that there is a system in place which automatically dials the lead and the respective agent the moment a lead is generated. Now, this call comes to the salesperson or the pre-sales agent. In this case, it's the pre-sales, and I have picked up the call and I'm now talking to the customer, right? Now I'm going to probably just take the basic requirements from the customer. The person is from the Alliance here, is looking at a property which is more than 50 lakhs. The person is an investor looking for immediate possession, is interested in sale, or is also interested in resale, doesn't mind the kind of property, and so on. The requirement list can be catered to the way it is needed as per the organization's processes. Now, after the first call, right, I can always add notes on the lead, seems interested, wants to connect after 2 days. And just to ensure that I don't lose out on this particular communication, I can schedule a follow-up for 2 days later. This was for a particular project, and I scheduled the follow-up. Now, while this was something which the agent did, let's look at what the system did the moment a lead got generated. So the moment I go to see the WhatsApps, I see that there is a WhatsApp which is automatically sent to this particular customer, right? I can also see that there was an email with the respective developer or a brand collateral or a project collateral which was sent, and there was a thank you email as well. So the idea is to ensure that we tackle or we go around the customer holistically and not just from one medium, which means there is an agent who reaches out to the customer. Meanwhile, there is WhatsApp, email, SMS that has gone to the customer, and it kind of gives a better experience and helps you ensure that there are possibilities of more and more touch points with the prospective buyer. Going ahead, what I can do is I can call from the same dashboard. These numbers can be masked, which ensures that the or the pre-sales doesn't have direct access to the number, or they can be kept the way it is right now. I can send different emails. I can send an SMS, which is a pre-approved template from the system. I can send WhatsApp, or I can just log a call if the call is not made from the system. So the purpose here is to ensure that everything which I want to do for a particular customer or a lead that has come to me should happen from a single dashboard. This, from a review or a management point of view, helps you generate the entire activity feed. So right from the generation of this lead on 11:53 till the current activations as on that particular date, everything on that particular contact or a lead is available for us to go back and check. Now, let's say I am conducting my follow-up by calling the customer again. I just click on call. It shows that you are on a call and the call has now come to the registered mobile number. While I'm doing this particular call, I realize that, okay, the customer is interested. It's a warm opportunity for me. And I change the disposition, right? The dispositions can be configured as per the business requirements. Now, while I'm talking to the customer, I realize that the customer is interested in meeting the sales guy and discussing this further. So I quickly go to a visit. I choose the project. I can have multiple type of visits which are configured. For example, there can be a home meeting, there can be an online meeting, or it can be actually a visit to the property. So let's say for now, I have chosen home visit. The home visit is scheduled for 4th of July at 10 a.m. If there are any additional invitees, you can add them. If there is any partner involved, that can be tagged. And I just schedule the visit. Now, the moment this visit is scheduled, I'm going to pass this particular lead to the respective salesperson. Now, here I can just push the lead at a project level, which means one of your guys who handle a particular project can get this particular customer out of the meeting, or I can choose a particular salesperson and I say push to sales. Now, this event ensures that for you, the clarity to see how well your pre-sales performed, right, is available onto the system. For example, I can always look at a report, which is of course available in the system by default, which talks about how many push to sales happen by a particular team or by a particular pre-sales agent. And that basically tells you the qualification percentage or the effectiveness of pre-sales. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out, log out, and log in as the manager or the salesperson which this lead was pushed. So quickly relooking at the dashboard, this is my sales dashboard. We spoke about new inquiries, unread emails, WhatsApps, missed calls, no future activity, re-engaged. Now compared to the first guy, this guy had done some work for the day, which is why you see that there is progress against every bar. You see today's agenda, you see a lot of these meetings or follow-ups getting read. This particularly happens when the particular slot is missed by the person. And you, of course, see the rest of the agenda that is there for a particular agent. Now, if I go to new inquiries, I see this particular customer and I start working on it. So now let's go back to the same customer who had inquired with us. So I'm on the page where I see that this is the customer that was pushed to me. And as we mentioned, you see the entire activity feed available for the reference. So you see when the lead was generated, you know that there was a note added that the customer was interested. You see that there was a follow-up conducted. There was a WhatsApp sent as the moment a visit was scheduled. I see the visit detail over here, and I see the complete my meeting, and I quickly go to the existing visits and I mark this as conducted. Met with the customer. Customer is interested in checking the property tomorrow. With this particular note, I have mentioned that my today's visit is done and I'm quickly going to schedule a meeting tomorrow. Now, this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it as a visit and not a home visit. As mentioned, the customer wants to meet tomorrow evening, let's say 6 p.m. And I schedule this particular visit. Now, all these activities, wherein a visit is marked, a visit is scheduled, all of this has a nurturing setup running at the backend, which we'll go into the details of. But for now, if you see, the moment I schedule a visit, there's a WhatsApp that is going, there's an email which is going from the system, And this ensures that the customer is continuously engaged. The same way there are reminders that go to the customer, they can be configured in terms of how soon you want to remind the customer. Is it at the start of the day? Is it 1 hour prior? And all of that. Now, once the customer is on the site, right? I have gone, I have checked the entire property details. The customer seems interested in making a booking, right? There might be a possibility that there are revisits that happen, there are cost details that are shared, discussed, and all of this is done. In the journey, let's assume we have come to a point when the customer is interested in making a booking. So the moment the customer is now ready for the booking, right? I look at the inventory which is available with me for this particular project. Just go here, I say add inventory. Now, this can be the inventory which is uploaded in bulk, or it can be unit by unit, the way it has come to us. So you can always have an inventory which is uploaded as if you have taken up the project for mandate, or you can have a chunk or a block of inventory, or you can add individual units to the system. So let's say select a particular lead, and I block this inventory for this particular customer. Now, the moment I go ahead, I can see that the entire cost sheet and the payment schedule is available. This depends on the data that is available with you. It can always be a simple form wherein a unit and its agreement is visible. And you just click on agreeing to the terms on behalf of the customer, and you see that there is a booking which is already made in the name of this particular customer, right? Now, after this booking is completed, there can be a set of tasks that you want to complete on behalf. These can be configured at a project level against every particular booking, and it helps you track the details or track the journey of a particular booking. Now, the moment you know that, okay, it's in block stage currently, I need to take balance payments, there is KYC documentation, there is loan documentation, there has to be an upfront payment that has to be sent to the developer. All of that can be configured from project to project and is available on the booking, so that the team members who are responsible for working on this particular journey can go and keep working on this. This gives us a very clear picture in terms of where exactly is a booking stuck. Is the booking stuck at the initial stage? Is it in between, where a part of the documentation is done? And when I say a part of the documentation is done, what exactly is done? What exactly is pending? Is it pending at the finances? Is it pending with documentation? Is it pending with the developer sign off? Is it anything else? That's something which is very clear. And after all these formalities are done, you can move into a confirmed booking stage. So this helps us track very clearly the journey and ensures that there is no drop off, because these are technically your hottest customers. No customer is a confirmed customer unless it goes through all these documentation and processes. So that's something which helps you keep a track of where exactly the customer is. So this was pretty much the journey, right? Wherein the customer started as an inquiry, we had activities performed, and it eventually ended up with the booking and the post-sales operations. Now let us quickly look at a few other things that helps us run this show better. Starting with drip marketing. Now, nurturing a customer is of utmost importance especially when we have such a competitive market, right? So like we discussed some time back, every nudge that the customer is taking increases our chances of a touch point. What drips help us do is, while there is a positive journey that is well thought of as a part of business process, wherein the lead comes to a particular person, the agent reaches out, wants to schedule a visit. Here, I can create a parallel route which can help me understand the movements of the customer and push the right content. For example, let's look at a sample drip. Now, here, whenever a visit is conducted, okay, is when this particular action starts. Now, I can have this as an entire decision tree, wherein, for example, if there is a certain condition, for example, I want to check that the moment a visit is conducted, I want to send a thank you message. Now, after 5 days, I want to send an email, right? Similarly, I want to, after sending this email, I want to check if that email is open and then accordingly send out a different set of communication. This tree can be built and can go for a very long time at the back end and ensure that basis the condition of the customer, there is continuous nurturing that is happening. What we have normally seen is such a level of nurturing which talks about brand and the project or the property to begin with, then eventually talks about the benefits. It can be location benefits, it can be amenities, it can be investment opportunities, it can be appreciation of the value. These go in the middle of the funnel, and eventually there is a urgency creating communication that goes at the bottom of the funnel as a part of your nurturing strategy. This helps you boost up your ratios minimum by 2 to 2.5%. Secondly, you can have all your bulk activities done from the system. Now, it is of big importance that whenever a lead is there in the system, you keep reaching out to the customer if there is a potential property that is available, right? So depending on what the criteria is, I can slice and dice the data, I can get the entire list created, and I can do an SMS blast, email blast right from the system. So if you see, there are multiple lists which are already created, or I can just create a new member list. I can have multiple conditions that can be applied over here, and I can do an email blast or an SMS blast. The same can also be done for WhatsApp, which depends on the vendor you are opting in for. Lastly, we have something called as an audience manager. Now, the biggest problem with the today's funnel is there are very few places where the CRM data goes back and talks to the marketing data. And because this funnel is not completed, you are not in a position to take right decisions. For example, I need to know if a certain set of audience drives more business for me, which means this data needs to go back to the advertising and a similar audience needs to be targeted. So I can quickly create that particular audience by slicing and dicing my data, and I can sync it back to Google and Facebook. This firstly ensures that the feedback loop is completed. Secondly, ensures that there is no need for an export to be taken from the system. Your lead data is never out in the open. It's the systems that keep talking to each other. Apart from this, a few other pointers to cover are you can set up your targets for a particular campaign. The targets can be for the leads, qualified leads, site visits, and the bookings, depending on what the objective is. We can always go for multiple templates, which ensures that the team doesn't have to keep working on the same things again and again. And there is a standardization in the communication that goes out. In terms of lead integration, like we discussed, there is a default API based integration. There are pre-configured property portals which help us capture the leads directly without any third party intervention. Same goes for our Facebook lead generation, which does not need any detail or any connector platform in between. The leads can be captured directly from Facebook and can be landed up in the system. If I have to look at the reports, there are 2025 pre-configured reports that help me deep dive into the journey or the performance of my campaigns, my agents. Apart from this, custom reports and data exports are available, which can be restricted and the access can be customized as per the need of the business. If you look at the pre-configured report, I have lead stage analysis. This can be checked by sales, by a particular team, project, campaign. You can see the entire lead funnel. You can have a report on unqualified reasons, lost reasons. In terms of marketing effectiveness, we can have multiple insights in terms of how many re-engaged leads are coming from a campaign, which talks about our reach and effectiveness of reaching out to the new potential customers. You can have lead location analysis, which talks about where is exactly this pull to your activation coming from, and accordingly make or the changes that are needed. In terms of your sales performance reports, you have a report that talks about the lead statistics, the way our team is working on them. For example, if you see this report, I have agent-wise, team-wise report about the number of leads given to them, how many of them are still untouched, leads with last call miss, and every parameter which is important to ensure that the operations are working fine is covered as a part of this particular report. You have your user target analysis, site visit by sales, follow-ups, bookings, pre-sales to sales, the report which we were talking about when we saw push to sales, right? Available for us in the system. When I look at there are a few reports which talk about the volumes, the durations. Typically, this is a report that we recommend to all the clients, which talks about the overall performance and gives a very good overview. For example, you have a sales by team, you get to know the talk time, you see the outgoing calls they made, what was the answering ratio, incoming calls, their answering ratio, how many follow-ups are being scheduled, conducted, how many visits are being scheduled and conducted, what's their time to first contact, what's their average callback time. In case if automation of call is not implemented, what's the average time for the first attempt to a new lead which is generated. So this gives me a very good overview in terms of how my team is performing, where exactly is the challenge, where in my funnel there is a scope of optimization, and how can I go ahead and ensure that the necessary changes are made to increase the effectiveness.